Tonight, our focus is going to be on how we need to know about the connection of stress and weight gain. And so I think that's a topic that a lot of you are interested in this evening. And I wanted to start off by first introducing our CEO, Coach Anton Schumacher. And he first fell in love with coaching with his passion lying in mainly helping people to find their identity. And I'm Linda Tilson, Chief Operating Officer of Coaching Hub. And as a confidence coach, I also share in Anton's passion for helping people. And as a confidence coach, I help people find out who they are in themselves, and I help them feel empowered to use their strengths. And the reason why we want to offer tonight's Stress Management for High Achievers seminar is that we want to be able to offer training that is available to everyone at a cost that people can afford. And so we are doing the first three as complimentary, and then the fourth one will actually be held on February 20th at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And this session, we are going to offer it to you at a low-cost registration fee of only $39.95. And I'm going to go ahead now and let Anton kick it off, and then I will be joining you guys back later when you guys type in questions into our Q&A dialogue box. Either Anton will answer it if it makes sense in the presentation, or he'll be answering them at the end. Thank you.
Love it, Linda. Thank you so much for the warm introduction. Guys, so the reality is we're just trying to educate people. We're trying to talk about things that are not necessarily being talked to in the common practices of our everyday life. There's a lot of misconceptions that exist in the world. And, it's one of those things that we want to break them down and make you understand what you need to know. Because before we can really tell you the how behind it, we got to tell you the why behind it. We got to tell you what your life is being impacted. And this one is probably more attractive to people because most people understand now in our society that weight and stress are very much connected. We're talking about we have an obesity epidemic, but I'm going to say we have a stress epidemic, right? What came first, the chicken or the egg? I'm going to say the stress is what's causing the obesity epidemic. And of course, poor nutrition and things like that are not helping that. We want to discuss a little bit of a refresher from the very first webinar that we had, right? So what is cortisol and what are the normal patterns, what it should do throughout the day, and what are the abnormal patterns of what it does when things are off? So just as a reminder, cortisol is a fight or flight hormone in our body. It acts in our system as a positive thing. It regulates inflammation. It helps us to increase alertness and awareness and performance when we're in danger. But the problem with cortisol is it's meant to be in our body for a short period of time. Whenever I discuss it and I talk to people, I discuss it from a standpoint of prehistoric times. What were we when we were first initially designed? A basic hunting and gathering society. We didn't have computer screens. We didn't have, all these things that we do now that are basically overstimulating our body. We didn't drive in traffic. We woke up in a cave, and we basically from there were able to hunt, come down to the cave, recover, and do it all over again. But guess what? Your hunting right now is not this short-lived thing. It's this prolonged period of time, right? You go to work for 8 hours, and you probably commute to work for another 30 minutes, there and back, so another hour. Then you got to take care of your kids. Then you got to do a bunch of stuff on the side if you got a side hustle. Guys, the reality of the situation, you're not hunting like you're used to. But we never shifted. We never changed the society because we still don't understand this fully. I would say really maybe 10%, maybe less of society grasp this to the level that we need to. So what should optimal values look like? This graph right here, right in the center where you guys see optimal value, that shows what we should be. So starting out, this is a diurnal cortisol graph measuring through saliva. And we do these kind of tests at Coaching Hub. If you guys need to, we use this basically to determine when is an individual best at making decisions, when is an individual best at being analytical, when they're best at being creative, when should they not make decisions at all because they crashed out somewhere in the middle of the day down here and it's a problem. So looking at this, optimal values, you shouldn't have any cravings. These are just red flags, guys. If this is going on, your body's telling you, hey, listen, I'm telling you that there's something's off. Just because something's been going on for a long time and it's become common does not equate it to be normal. You'll hear me say that all the time. So you should not have any cravings. You should fall asleep within 5 minutes. You should have uninterrupted 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. normal blood pressure, no emotional imbalances. If you're getting some of the other side effects, right? What normally happens? Body starts to overproduce cortisol, starts to overproduce the stress response. So what does that do to our body? We start to kind of come on this left side over here as you take a look. You see that instead of being high and coming down, we're pretty much staying high. Yeah, we kind of came down a little bit, but we're chronically elevated above that green zone. So what happens is your body's just in that overdrive. You're going to feel things like hard time getting going in the morning. Even though you stayed in bed for 8 hours, you're getting up and you're just not rested. You're not ready to get going. You're going to feel things like being a night owl, feeling tired and wired. That's a thing that I hear all the time where people say, you know what, my body's exhausted, but my mind is just zoom. Like I'm wide awake, I'm ready to do stuff, but I'm just not motivated, right? You're going to sweat easily. I discussed how there's a partner hormone to aldosterone, cortisol called aldosterone that basically regulates our blood pressure by displacing water in and out of our cell. So when we sweat easily, it's because there's too much aldosterone pushing water outside of our cell. Unexplained elevated glucose levels. We'll talk a lot about that today, how cortisol impacts our blood sugar and how that impacts our weight. And then sugar cravings. We obviously know sugar is not healthy. You know, our society used to think that it was fat that was, bad for us. Now we realize it's really the sugars. So then what happens is your body stays here for a long period of time. And it depends on your body's capacity. In the later seminar, I'll discuss kind of bucket analogy and things like that. But right now, just understand each one of us on this call has a different ability to withstand certain amounts of stress. Some of you are going to be, built for being C-level executives. You can take on monumental amounts of stress and be fine because your bucket capacity is massive. That's not to say at some point you will not reach the kind of end point and things become a problem. But some of us have stress for like 5 days and we're like, oh my God, like I need a vacation for a year to get rid of it. And there's not right or wrong. It's just a human being, what you design. I don't know how this is built. It's just how it is. So lower cortisol then starts to happen. We go from this orange area now into the red. Now we got some serious problems. So now your body's been overproducing the stress response for so long that now it's basically going, you know what? I can't. It stops making it. Now it's a real problem. Now we start having salt cravings. Our body cannot hold on to water. Our body needs a lot more salt to be able to do that. We start getting dizzy or lightheaded when standing up quickly. What happens ultimately is because blood pressure drops and our body's not able to get oxygenated blood to the brain. So the brain doesn't have enough oxygen, so we get lightheaded. That's very common for people who have been under stress for a long time. So if that's happening, you need to do something about this tomorrow, not in a week from now, because this could be very close to what's called Addison's disease, where your body's flatline. It's no longer making cortisol. And I'll give this story again because it's important, especially for this webinar. I had one of my clients, this was probably about 6 years ago, I want to say, but her name was Dawn, lovely lady. And what she did is she was getting ready for a wedding. And I'm sure many of you have, been in a place where you need to kind of cram and get your body looking good, right? You got to go to the beach, you got a pool party. So I'm not going to eat for a week and hopefully my belly fat goes away. But for some reason it didn't work. So I'll talk about that later. But the story with Dawn, she was going to my boot camp class, guys, and I'm ex-Marine. So you got to understand, not a nice instructor. I'm a drill instructor, really. And I'm the kind of person that's kicking sand in your face going, go harder, you got more. So very hard class for an hour. And then she would do an intense hour of cardio afterwards. And I would just come talk to her periodically and be like, Dawn, you can't do this. Like, this is going to hurt you. And she's like, Anton, I got this. I got a wedding coming up. I got to look good. I'm like, okay. I mean, I can, what do you say? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So I kept teaching her, educating her. And finally, one day she comes in and she's just gray in the face. Like you can tell, just lifeless. I don't know if you guys ever seen people in that state. She's like, Anton, I just can't do anything. It's been a week like this and I have no energy. And I go, you know what, Don, you didn't listen because back when you were in this orange area overproducing, now you're probably flatline. Now you're crashed out. Go to a doctor because you don't need a naturopath to do this. Just a simple blood test in the morning will tell you this. Sure enough, gets a test, gets diagnosed with adrenal failure, which took her 1.5 years to recover from. Okay, so the thing is, when you get adrenal failure, I'll talk about exercise and stress in a sec, but adrenal failure does not allow you to exercise for a long time. Your doctor will not clear you to work out. So I saw her 1.5 years later, walking by the pool, heading to the locker room, and I see her in the pool. I'm like, hey, Don, what's going on? Recognized her, of course. I was a trainer back then. So money, thinking, great, get a new client. Hey, what's going on? Ready to come back to work out? She's like, no, Anton, I could be in the pool. I can't even swim. 1.5 years has gone by. She was on medications, all sorts of stuff, and she wasn't able to swim yet because she's not ready. Her adrenal glands are not ready. So difficulty staying asleep, lower blood pressure, and gets hangry, guys. This is one of the biggest things you can identify is your blood sugar is not being regulated because of stress when you're getting hangry. So optimal becomes elevated, elevated becomes lowered, and then we got, kind of a big deal problem. So what happens at that point? We want to talk about stress and weight gain. If you have a stress problem, there's going to be a very specific place you're going to carry body fat. It's going to be centralized. So at the company that, I worked for a long time, we have this assessment. You stand on a scale and it measures your body fat and it tells you, here's your body fat percentage, here's how much muscle you have, here's how much fat you have. But it also tells you in what area you hold percentages of fat in relation to what you should have. And it's funny because the last 6 months of my life have been hectic. And even though I know all this stuff, guys, I still hire coaches to help me get through it because knowledge is not enough. Application requires actual accountability. So I've gotten some belly fat, right? And I get this chart pulled up and I got everything like sub 100% in the arms, sub 100% in the legs, 189% in the belly. Oh, snap. And guys, I'm not talking about I'm not overweight, I don't have a belly, but relatively speaking to where my body fat is being held, and you can see that. So why is that happening? Every hormone in the system that we have basically deposits body fat differently. This is why some people have a pear-shaped body, some people have, more of an apple-shaped body, just different types of bodies. And the reason for it is because different hormonal imbalances put body fat into different locations. Typically, as a woman, you're going to see back of the arm fat and a little bit of love handle stuff due to estrogens. If your estrogen's out of whack, typically that's where you're going to see. Guys are going to see that in the chest, similarly to testosterone, and they're going to have issues as well with the belly from that region. The stress will always centralize it. Thyroid will typically put it in the thighs. From my experience, that's what I've seen. And blood sugar, a lot of times you get back fat, kind of that lower underneath the shoulder blade, by the armpit. So different issues are caused because of insulin, not sugar, but insulin problems. That's what causes that. So imbalances in cortisol directly affect belly fat and just overall centralizing that belly fat. So it raises your risk of chronic diseases and even cancer. And women are more prone to the belly fat than men. Men have a little bit more of adaptive stress response. They're able to overcome it. And for all those ladies that are on the call right now that have been pregnant, I've dealt with my wife a lot. Your pregnancy stresses your body out so much. That's why one of my favorite people to work with is women postpartum, because you can really help them a lot to speed up their postpartum depression, to get their body fat to come down, to get their image to come to get up, but more importantly, to get them to feel normal again. So if you've had kids, chances are you screwed yourself up and may never even fixed it. And you've been operating this way for a long time and you just don't know what good feels like, guys. You're going to hear me say this a lot. In order for you to know what you have to go after, you got to know that it's worth it. But in order to know that it's worth it, you got to know what it feels like. You may not have felt optimized and great for so long now that you simply don't know that it's worth it because you just don't see it. So you think, oh my God, all this work I got to do, go to the gym, eat right, blah, 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 blah. But the reality is if you knew what that did for you and how you felt, you'd be doing that every day, no problem. So like I always say, 30 days consistency and then evaluate at that point. So stubborn belly fat, we'll talk about how to correct it and stuff like that in a sec. So your level of normal might not be healthy, and the overbooked calendar and constant quest to squeeze another errand into your schedule might be the very thing preventing you from optimal health and belly fat loss. Who would have thought that you having too much in your schedule is causing you to have belly fat? That's crazy, right? But it's happening. It's absolutely happening, guys. So make sure that this is something you're paying attention to. Out of control eating. What stress does is it makes us eat out of control. We've heard of kind of, I'm a stress eater and stuff like that, but what's ultimately happening during those times? So basically, under stress, cortisol increases blood sugar because your body needs to have that extra energy basically to respond to imminent danger. Your body doesn't know if cortisol was spiked because of overbooked schedule, if it was spiked because of too hard of a workout, if it was spiked because there's a lion in front of your face. Your system doesn't differentiate. It's just simply the hormone went up. So now because of that, our blood sugar is going to go up because our body's trying to get more insulin into the system to get the body to produce more energy from sugar specifically. Without actually burning this energy off in a physical fight or flight response that we were designed to, we start to create a blood sugar roller coaster. And that's when problems start to happen. When our blood sugar fluctuates, our sex hormones get impacted. When blood sugar fluctuates, our insulin gets impacted. And that's how you can actually become type 2 diabetic without even being a bad eater or not such a bad eater, right? Your diet could be not horrible. It could be still above average, but you could be a type 2 diabetic because of not managing stress response. So just understand it's super connected. Craving for carbohydrates, sweets, and sugars may result from this, even despite best efforts, right? I work with clients on this all the time, and I hear you blaming yourself going, I'm not good enough at this. I'm not disciplined enough at this. Where I'm going, well, did you know that this could be a physiological dependency where your body's literally screaming at you, give me sugar now? And guess when a lot of times this happens? At night. Guys, I bet you many of you tuning into this webinar, and especially those who have been coming around, know that at nighttime, that's usually when the cravings are the worst. We'll talk about some strategies for that and the reasons for it. One of the main reasons could be is that your cortisol screwed up. And here's kind of what could be happening. At nighttime, it's super high. So it should be low, but it's high because you're flipped. And in the morning, it's lower than it should be, it's not high enough. And for those reasons, your appetite is drastically high at night, and you're craving sugar, those simple energies. I'll talk about that in a sec. And in the morning, you have no appetite. So then you don't get your calories throughout the day, not until the back half of the day. And then you're binge eating. Your body's trying to catch up, get all these nutrients in. So one of the best advices we'll talk about is breakfast. The way you eat in the morning jumpstarts your day and controls how you eat at night. So stress makes us not burn fat. Guys, this is a little bit of science on here. I do not expect you to understand this, but I just need you to look at it from a very simple standpoint. Take a look at a glucose molecule, right? Compared to this complex fat molecule down here at the bottom. If you were to say, okay, for energy, you're going to have to go and take this thing apart before you can use it. And I put a line in front of your face, and you have limited time, obviously. Which one of these are you going to go after? It's a no-brainer, guys. You're going to go after the simplest one because that's going to provide the most easiest energy. A carbohydrate produces a little bit less energy than a fat, but it's much more, actually a lot less energy than fat, but it's a lot quicker broken down. So for similar reasons, when we talk about exercise, going all out, like so many of us, okay, going to the gym, January 1st. All right, I'm ready. I got my backpack. I got my really cool water bottle. I got my, app that's going to track everything. I got my step counter, whatever the heck it is people do. I'm going to get on a treadmill because I'm not comfortable with anything else. Treadmill's pretty safe. I know I'm going to burn some calories. I'm going to go all out for an hour, right? So 2 scenarios. I like to discuss this with people. One scenario is I'm standing next to you. I got my military getup on. I got my boots. I'm yelling at you for an hour, spit flying everywhere. In an hour, you burn 1,000 calories. Fantastic, right? We're thinking we accomplished so much. Okay, let's break it down. For one, you probably don't like fitness after that because you just miserable and you're not having fun. 2, we're probably never working again because you're never going to come back to a coach like that. But most importantly, out of that 1,000 calories, because of the intensity you're at and the need for immediate energy, your body may have only been using 5 to 10% coming from fat. So mathematically speaking, 50 to 100 calories consumed in that hour out of the 1,000. Yes, there is some afterburn, and we're not talking about that. I'm specifically focused on fixing stress, not just losing weight. But if we need to fix stress, we don't really care about the afterburn. So second scenario, I put you on that same treadmill for an hour, but we pick a pace at which you're able to maintain conversation. Those are 2 important places that I need you guys to understand. Place 1 is you're only able to say 2 to 3 words per breath. Place 2, you feel like you're, a little out of breath, but you can maintain conversation fluidly. That's where your body's burning fat much better than the other place. So say out of that hour, we only consumed 500 calories because the intensity wasn't as fast. Our body didn't need as much fuel, and for that reason was able to pull a lot more from fat because it had the time to break down this complex fat molecule and get more energy from it. So at that intensity, we would consume maybe 50% fat versus just 5 to 10 at the other one. So what did that do? Out of those 500 calories, we got 250 burnt from fat. We also gave our body practice at utilizing fat for fuel, so then it gets better for it at rest. Because when it comes down to cardio, you need to understand, cardio is not just about burning calories. Cardio is about adapting your metabolism. How can you do the right thing in the gym for 3 to 5 hours that you're there to change your body at rest for the other 168 or whatever there is hours in the week. Because in reality, even gym junkies are less than 3% of their day is spent in the gym. So to think that you can fix everything in that 3% is crazy. Everything you do with that 3% needs to impact the other 97%. So by spending majority of our time at a comfortable intensity, I would say a 4-to-1 ratio. When you're doing cardio, do 4 parts slow, 1 part out of breath. So it would be an interval training. Go really comfortable for about 4 minutes, then speed up for a minute, come back down, and do this for a duration, no more than 40 minutes if you're stressed out. I'll cover that in a sec. So understand these things and just don't always choose simple nutrients. For the similar reasons, it's not good to carb up. This old school belief, I'm going to go for a run, I'm going to go carb up. Great, so now you're going to burn a bunch of sugar. You're not going to do anything for your weight loss. And it's not going to make you more fat efficient. It's going to slow down your run in the reality because the back half, you're going to crash out and not have the energy that you did in the front half. So that's a little bit about, why stress is not making us burn fat. Just need to understand there's no difference between your schedule, your workout, a lion, and your wife yelling at you, your husband yelling at you. It's all stress to our system. It all responds in the same way when it comes down to our weight and energy. So stress and muscle. This is another thing that, people are starting to catch on. Muscle is not a bad thing. Women are not going to get bulky from picking up a weight and lifting it a few times. I'm laughing because I get this a lot. And, I'll give advice for somebody with stress management. Hey, you need to do resistance training. We can't get on a treadmill. It's stressing you out too much. We got to do resistance training. I'll talk about that in a sec too. But so the person, they're going to basically say, well, I don't want to get bulky. Okay, sounds good. So for that same reason, do you not drive a car because you're afraid to become a race car driver? No, because it's not that easy. It's not that easy to gain. It's not that easy to add muscle. You look in the magazine, you see, these fitness models and bodybuilders and whatnot, and you think, okay, if I go do what they do, I'm going to get there. Sure, in 5 to 10 years with massive nutrition, everything on point, ton of supplements. But if you just lift weights like them, you're just going to get the benefits without necessarily that much muscle. It takes a lot of work, so don't be afraid of it. So understand, muscle is important for many reasons, guys. One of the biggest reasons you need muscle, and if you sit a lot throughout your day, guess what? Your body's eating that muscle. Once you get to about 60, there's not enough hormones left in your system, and it could be sooner if stress depletes them, to maintain that muscle. And what starts to happen, we atrophy. Our body eats it away. And what happens usually, our quads, the front of the legs, kind of those muscles start to go. So if you see older people, watch them getting out of chairs, right? Instead of just getting up nice and easy, they're kind of using their hands and assisting themselves. Why? Leg muscles are gone, no strength. The difference between you living in your 80s and thriving versus you making it and surviving there is what you do in your 30s, 40s, and 50s when it comes down to muscle. So if you don't think you have enough right now, go build a surplus. So that when your body starts to lose it, we don't become in a big old deficit too soon. And we're able to ride it out until we're dead with full function. So that's why one of the main reasons why muscle is important. So acute stress is good for fitness, but chronic stress is a problem, right? So fitness is because we want a little bit of stress response. That's why caffeine works really good for performance. It raises our performance because our body increases cortisol, that fight or flight, to get away from something. So if we're using physical activity, we're going to be better at it, but it's meant to be short-lived. It's meant to be a spike and then a drop as fast as possible. We want to bring cortisol down post-workout as quickly as we can. And the reason for it has to do with catabolism. So catabolism just means that your body's wasting muscle tissue. Because we revved up with stress response post-workout, what I suggest doing is taking magnesium and vitamin C, some of the cheapest supplements you can find out there. You don't have to be supplements. Go, take a green leafy smoothie and eat some garlic. Garlic actually has more vitamin C than oranges do. So something like that, but maybe not put the garlic in the smoothie, maybe have it with a meal. That'd be weird. Or just have some ascorbic acid in a pill, pop some magnesium in a pill or liquid or powder, doesn't matter, with a protein shake anyway. So the point is, those will help to bring it down. When cortisol comes down, our body's able to go opposite, right? We have here a picture, anabolic and catabolic. Catabolic is going to be breaking it down. Anabolic is going to be building. We need to get to anabolic as fast as possible to build the muscle, because the fitness doesn't actually create change. The fitness creates the need for change. When you work out, you lift weights, you're telling your system, hey, what I'm currently asking from you is slightly outside of its capability. So in order for you to get better and face this next time, you need to elevate IGF, insulin growth factor 1, testosterone, human growth hormone, anabolic hormones. But If we're staying stressed post-workout, that's not going to happen. If your body's not adapted to stress well, that's not going to happen. So that's why it becomes such an important thing to reduce stress response post-workout. One of the best ways to do that, if you're in a corporate gym, is a dry sauna. This is a great practice. I'll dive into it a lot more in detail. Sorry, guys, I keep itching my nose, got allergies. But I'll dive deeper into it in the paid version of the webinar, but I want to give you a little tip. Try 10 to 20 minutes of dry sauna post-workout. And what it does, because your body's very sympathetic, very go post-workout, you get into that heated environment and you stay there as long as you can. Try to do it up to 20 minutes, but please don't pass out because Coach Anton told you to do 20. Like, no, get to an uncomfortable standpoint and then leave. So your body gets that, oh my God, get me out, get me out. And then you go into that cool shower and pop, it flips. You just get that calming effect. Relaxed. It has to be dry heat because the core temperature has to go up enough. So don't go into a wet sauna. It needs to be a dry sauna and then a nice cool shower. I'm not telling you freeze yourself, just a nice cool shower that's going to bring the body temperature down. So it's a combination of those two. What I do is I have a really cold pool. So there's a cold swimming pool and I go do a hot sauna and then I do a cold plunge immediately afterwards. I feel like $1,000,000. Guys, it doesn't take you a week to do this. Do it one time, you'll feel better. So try this out. It'll help you with stress response and it'll bring that stress response down, making your parasympathetic, going into recovery, being able to be anabolic. So for every pound of lean muscle, we burn anywhere from 35 to 50 calories per day at rest. So everybody all of a sudden starts doing curls right now. Oh my God, I'm not have to do anything. All I'm going to do is sleep. No, not quite that simple. But the reality is for every pound of lean muscle, we burn more calories throughout everyday life. So many women, I see this with women all the time because they're afraid of having muscle, struggle with weight gain because they just don't have a functional metabolism. They don't burn enough calories throughout the day. So by adding a little bit of pounds, say we added 5 pounds of muscle. For one, don't worry, it's not going to bulk you. It's going to tighten you up. You're going to lose inches if you added 5 pounds. Now, if you added 20 pounds, you're going to gain size, you're going to gain inches, but 5 pounds distributed throughout the system would not. What could you do with 250 calories per day burnt at rest more than before without you doing squat? Well, let's see. Over a course of 10 days, that's 250 calories. Over a course of about 15 days, we're burning a pound of fat without doing squat differently for having those 5 pounds. That's why people that are more muscular get away with murder when it comes down to nutrition because we burn so many calories. You know, guys, I don't restrict my diet. I don't think I've ever in my life, I know. I've never in my life restricted calories. I've modified macros. I've modified what I'm putting in, quantity, and the quantity never varied. Timing and quality did, but never quantity because I'm a muscular person. I get away with murder for that reason. So go lift weights and it'll help you out. So moving on, this is really important, guys, because this is one of the biggest stigmas I need to break for many of you. If you guys are runners, this is probably the biggest group I have to battle with. I'm not talking about a little bit of running here and there. I'm talking about more long distance, half marathon, and stuff like that. Running over duration of 40 minutes. Here's what's happening. Your body doesn't know that you're working out. We weren't designed to work out. This is something that we implemented later on in life when we realized that we're no longer chasing, deer or whatever it is we were hunting. So you've been running for 40 minutes consecutively. When your heart rate's elevated consistently for 40 minutes without break, your system's going, something has been chasing me. I got to get away. So what did we talk about earlier? Cortisol goes up, insulin goes up, blood sugar goes up, fat burn goes down, stress goes up, blood sugar regulation goes down, belly fat goes up. But yet we're running to lose belly fat. This is what happens, guys. There's no marathoners with six packs. There's triathletes, and if they do cross-training, they do this right, and they apply science, then yes, there's marathoners with six packs. But take a look at average marathon runners. They don't have six packs. They have a ton of belly fat, and they're not good fat burners. Usually don't have good muscle tone either because they're wasting so much muscle all the time. So everything's about balance. I'm not telling you to give up on cardio, but maybe reduce it and implement a lot more weights. So overtraining, right? What is overtraining? It's something in the fitness world that's been popularized in probably in the last 10 to 15 years. I will argue there's no such thing as overtraining, there's under recovering. You can train as hard as you want to if you're giving your body the adequate sleep and adequate nutrition that it needs. You look at some of these professional athletes that are working out 3 days a week. Well, guess what? After every workout, they're probably getting a massage or doing a sauna, doing some sort of recovery-based stuff. They're eating 10 to 12,000 calories a day to allow for that to happen. You're not that. So understand that if you're pushing your body hard, you need to recover just as hard. Because when does this change happen? We talked about when you're asking from your system something that's slightly outside of its current capability, your body's going to create the need for change. Then when we rest, usually at night, is when that change is going to occur. But if you're not sleeping well because your body's training so hard and it's always so stressed, you're getting diminishing results. Used to help a lot of bodybuilders and stuff like that get ready for shows many years ago. And I had this vivid story. Two guys come up and, super big dudes. Like, I mean, they were ripped. They were really fit. And they go, hey, man, like, I heard you're the guy to go to for, hormonal stuff. We just can't reveal our abs. Like, we're walking around at 5% body fat, but we just don't have the definition that we need. It's like, cool, tell me what you're doing. Blah, 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 list out all these different things. And I go, okay, I need you to cut it in half. I need you to cut that in half for 2 weeks, take some fish oil, take some magnesium and chromium, and let's see how things go. So what do you mean in half? We got to get ready for show. We got to do all this stuff. And I'm like, look, man, like, it doesn't matter what you do until you recover your stress response right now. You're not going to come in show ready. So one did and one didn't. Sure enough, the one that did revealed his abs. The one that didn't got fatter because he was overtrained. He did too much. The one that backed off was no longer getting diminishing results, where you're pushing harder but getting less. So understand, in fitness and nutrition and everything, there's got to be a balance. So high intensity versus low intensity. If your body's already under a lot of stress, high intensity exercise may not be optimal for you. Because say you're, had a stressful work day and now you're going home and you hitting the gym on the way home trying to de-stress. What do we like to do? We like to kill our brain, shut it down because we pushed it so hard and become parasympathetic. Love it, good feeling, I get it. But that's spiking our stress responses to the evening, affecting our sleep. Whether you're falling asleep better, harder or not is not relevant because you could be not recovering as well. Once again, getting diminishing results. So high intensity is going to be like super heavy weights or jumping, where we're generating a lot of force in a very short amount of time. Low intensity is going to be something that is more endurance based, right? We're not lifting as heavy weight. It's maybe slower, more controlled, not a lot of velocity, things like that. So understand, high intensity is usually not good for high stress people, but people that are crashing out and been fatigued in the morning, it's good to do it because we want to kickstart that cortisol response so we get the body back to normal, high to low. Low intensity is going to be good for people that are overly stressed, just to kind of bring them down. Low intensity could be yoga, could be Pilates, and things like that we'll talk about in a sec. Duration and timing importance. So duration, if you're overstressed, don't work out for over 40 minutes. Once again, at that point, you're going to get diminishing results. Timing, this is where we come in with a 4-point diurnal cortisol test. Spit into 4 different tubes throughout the day, measure your pattern to see when is optimal time for you to exercise. Because the reality, guys, if I told you, hey, suck it up, buttercup, if you got to wake up 30 minutes earlier to get your workout in the morning, but it's going to give you double the results, would you do it? Heck yes, you would do it. Everybody would do it. But the problem is we don't fully understand that, and we go, it's okay, I'll get just as good results at night, or I'll get just as good results at lunchtime. But that's not always the case. So cardio versus strength training. We already kind of dove into that. Cardio is going to be a lot more stressful on the body than strength training. It's a lot harder on the body than strength training. Yes, you get more sore from weights, but it's a lot more impact that happens from all the pounds of force and torque that happen on your joints when you run, especially if you run fast. So strength training is a lot more better for stress response. And it's also not continuous, right? You do a set, you rest. You do a set, you rest. So your body's fooled not into thinking that it's being running away from something because it's getting those breaks. So it's not a constant chronic elevated heart rate. So understand, weights become a lot more important for that reason. Exercise is not a form of stress relief for the body. This is that common stigma that exists. I'm stressed. Let me go for a run, clear my head. You're going to clear your head because you're going to get endorphins. You're going to feel good. But physically, chemically, scientifically, you're actually getting more stressed because you're probably doing wrong form of exercise for the type of stress that you're experiencing. So we'll dive into a lot more detail into the paid webinar on what specific type of workout should be used for a specific type of response. I'll have graphs for you. And if your pattern looks like X, this is what you do. If your pattern looks like Y, this is what you do, so on and so forth. So getting into what do we do, right? We got a few minutes left here and actionable items. Guys, this first one makes me laugh because we've all heard this. I doubt there's a single person in the world who didn't have a mom, a dad, a grandpa, or a grandma at one point say, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, right? Probably all nodding your head. Sure enough, it happens. Probably tell your kids too. But do we actually follow that? And if we break it down, do we eat quality stuff for breakfast? What is typical American breakfast? Cereal, waffles, toast? What is that? A carbohydrate. Creates a blood sugar spike, then inevitably you're going to have a drop. And then all day long, we're doing these big peaks and valleys. In the peaks, you're not burning fat. You're craving crap and your body's maybe feeling good, maybe feeling good, but you're going to be on your way down soon enough. Before lunchtime comes around or before snack time comes around, you've crashed out. You hit a valley because you didn't take anything to sustain that blood sugar. There was no protein, there was no fat, there wasn't really any good fiber. So your body burned through it so fast because it was such simple energy that now we need more. Well, guess what? Now you're sitting in the valley, and guess what happens now? Now we want carbs. Now we want sugar. Now we want crunchy, salty things, whatever we can get our hands on, and that's what happens. Or we don't eat at all. We skip breakfast, maybe even skip lunch or get a later meal in the day. Finally, towards the evening, our stress response starts to come up. But like I said, in the past, we didn't get enough calories throughout the day. And now, while we're kind of predisposed to a really sugary eating or salt eating, carb eating, we need to catch up on calories. Wow. Good luck, guys. It's just not your fault at this point. It's poor strategy. You can't say no. Your body demands those calories. It needs it. And if you don't get them, you're going to have other issues in metabolism, like starving your body. So got to get your calories in for breakfast. And I usually tell people never eat less than 10 times your body weight. And I'm talking about averages. I'm not talking to somebody that's, really small or somebody that's really overweight. I'm talking about average people. On average, multiply your pounds and weight by 10, and that's the number of calories you should be eating per day, no less than that. But I try to get a third of them for breakfast. Make yourself do that. Guys, the breakfast is the most controlled meal. You all are tuned into this webinar, I'm hoping because you're high achievers, because that's what I work with, or you're entrepreneurs, you got a lot of things on your plate. The rest of your day is uncontrolled. You don't know what can happen, but you can wake up 15 minutes earlier. You can pre-cook something at night. You can plan and batch cook on Sundays. Here's a tip. Take little cupcake, little cupcake tinfoil things, beat a bunch of eggs, spinach, mushrooms, onions, some fibrous things, throw some turkey sausage, bacon. Bacon's good for you guys. I'll argue if somebody wants to DM me, we'll have a conversation. I eat half a pound of bacon probably every day. I freaking love it. Nitrate free, low sodium, don't worry. But basically, so I get those calories in, I'm able to get my body to be full, I'm able to control it. And the suggestion I was telling you is the bake, right? So you take the tinfoil and you put those eggs in there, you bake them, and then you put them in the fridge, sorry. You can stay good for about 5 days, then you got yourself a nuked little egg cupcake, whatever, and it's got everything you need. You can do a couple of those on the run. So it's literally what I'm telling you, there's no excuse. If you're going to raise your hand and say, I don't do breakfast nutritionally because I have an excuse for time, here's your, I just took that away. If it's other reasons, reach out, guys. I'll help you out with suggestions and things like that. I think there is on the call right now, Karen Cooper. She's great at nutrition as well. Great coach. So reach out to her. I'm sure she can help you guys out as well with specific things to do. I'm a lot more of a generalist. I don't really do a lot of nutrition coaching anymore. It's part of a bigger system. But if you need specific nutrition, there's great people I can refer you to. Watch out for blood sugar spike, right? So don't start your day with simple carbs because, like I said, you crash out. By lunch, poor energy. Or because you're doing this all day long into the evening, you come in crashed out, going to have poor stress response already, and you're going to eat bad things. So protein, fiber, and fat at every meal. Never eat a carb alone. So very common snacks, apples, bananas, grapes, oranges. Probably the worst fruit you can have when you're trying to maintain and stabilize your blood sugar or lose weight. Well, Anton, those fruit are good for us. Good nutritionally, bad for weight loss. They're the most sugary fruit you have. So if you're going to do fruit, do more berries. Berries, pomegranate, apricot, kiwi, grapefruit. Those are going to be your go-to because they're not going to spike a ton of blood sugar. They're very fibrous, so they have a lot of seeds and a lot of fiber in them, so they're going to offset that glucose, have a low glycemic index. But the point of fiber, fat, and protein is it makes our blood sugar last. Instead of having a big spike and a quick drop, slow spike and a slow gradual drop. So before we go all the way suboptimal blood sugar, we're able to get a meal in and keep it elevated and keep it maintained. So every meal. So if you're having an apple, right? So this is what I do for snacks. My clients, it's funny. You open up my clients' purses. Most of them have little peanut butter or preferably almond butter. You can't get everybody to eat almond butter, but peanuts are not good for you, the legumes. But almond butter, and if you're having an apple, if something like that, put some almond butter in it. Once again, it's not ideal that you're having an apple, but at least we're stabilizing it. So my philosophy on nutrition, guys, is 80-20. 80% of the time you're good, 20% of the time you're not. And the only way you can be 80% good if you give yourself 20% a break. If you try to be 100% good, you're going to be 0% good. Just trust me. I'm telling you, I've been doing this for 10 plus years. I know what I'm talking about. When you try to make too many changes at once, it's not going to happen. So More complex carbohydrates than simple ones. If we have to ingest carbs, try to lean towards more complex ones instead of having a piece of bread that came from a flour that's already broken down, very easily available. Body doesn't have to work to get energy from it. It's very quick and easy. That's not good. But if we're having a sweet potato, brown rice, quinoa is my go-to, buckwheat, buckwheat should be your best friend, has a ton of iron, and women need a lot of iron. But the point is, those are complex. Body has to work to break it down. So slower energy comes in and it lasts longer because of that. So guys, implement those carbohydrates throughout your day. Carb timing, typical people think, if I eat my carbs in the morning, I'm going to burn them up. I'm not going to store them into the night. Body's not as linear as you think. It's not that simple. What's called, look it up, back carb loading. It's better to eat your carbs at night. So carbs are not as bad as everybody makes them sound. And the fat industry or weight loss industry does a lot of fats. Carbs help you perform in the gym, but you need to understand carb timing. You need to understand earning your carbs. So think about your muscles. Your muscles are the gasoline tanks for your carbohydrates, for glucose, for energy. You can store somewhere between 300 and 400 grams of carbs in your body. So probably about an hour to 2 hours of decent activity, of actually performing. If you worked out, your body's depleted that gasoline in those muscles. So now when we go eat a carbohydrate post-workout, which is actually ideal, you're going to replenish it. It's going to fill the muscles up and it's not going to have an excess. But if you just slept all day or all night and you woke up in the morning or, after a nap, you haven't done anything and now you're eating carbs, your muscles are already full. What happens to your gasoline tank when you put gasoline in the tank and it's already full? It overflows. At that point, what happens? Insulin is going to signal to the system, hey, we have too much energy. We need to take some of this excess, deposit it in the form of more complex energy for later utilization. What's complex energy? Fat. Where does it go? Belly. So make sure that you guys understand carb timing. So if we went all day with minimal carbs, then we can have some carbs at night. We're going to replenish them. It's actually going to help with serotonin and sleep at night. So it's not such a bad thing, but more complex carbs. My go-to at night is sweet potatoes. A huge fan of sweet potato. Try it out. May even actually help you with sleep. So shifting towards a higher fat diet. Your body is the most amazing piece of machinery in the world. Hands down, nothing like it, nothing even compares. I don't care how advanced AI gets, it'll never be as good as your body. So it'll shift and adjust to what you're trying to do. So say right now you feel like your blood sugar is not regulated because you're overstressed. Well, if you start eating a higher fat diet, healthy fats, guys, I'm not telling you go eat McDonald's, healthy, naturally occurring fats, then your body's going to realize that more of my fuel sources right now are coming from fat. And I'm going to shift more of my energy depletion from fat than I do from carbohydrate. Because at any point, you're sitting there right now and I'm sitting right now, you're burning a certain percentage of fat and a certain percentage of carbohydrates at rest. If we want to lose weight, we ultimately want to shift that towards more fat, less carbohydrates. So then we can lose that weight faster and, more importantly, maintain it while you after you lose it. Guys, I tell you this all the time, and I will say this to every client. My goal for you and my goal for every client is to achieve your results today, maintain them a year from now with health 10 years from now. There's a lot of fads, there's a lot of gimmicky diets and prescription pills and you name it that are going to get you results, but they're not going to be maintained, or they're going to cause you issues like cancers and heart failure and God knows what down the road. So you need to think beyond what's in front of your nose and look at the bigger picture when you're making these changes. So exercise appropriate to what your body needs, right? Weights, if you're stressed, but you still want to maintain good physique, you really want that athletic build. Cardio in moderation. If you're stressed, you can use sprints. That's something to think about. Sprints are actually less damaging to the body because it's not that prolonged time. You get really fatigued and fast, and you can do a sprint and then stop and break. Sprint, stop, and break. So your body's thinking it's getting those reps and rest periods, not continuous running. Yoga. Guys, we discussed I think in the first one or second one, I can't remember, but types of yoga. Try different types. If you're an intense person, come check out my power class. People have told me my boot camps were easier than my yoga classes. We kept moving, very intense movements, one breath, one movement. You get wiped by the end of class. Or check out my yin class, which is very restorative and relaxing. We don't actually engage our muscle. Everything's on the mat, come into a twist, hold for 5 minutes, relax. But just understand there's different types and one will fit you better than the others. Now, you guys, if you have a question or anything I discussed, I saw one come up, type it into a Q&A. I will pop it in and I'll answer at the end here in about 5 minutes or so, or maybe a couple minutes, however much time we got. And then Pilates. Something to try out is Pilates. Pilates can be dual purpose, where it works on resistance, but it still works on relaxing the body. So it's in a reformer, has like a bunch of springs and things like that. You have to go to a studio, can't do this on your own because you need an instructor, but it does amazing things for your back, for your core, for your shoulders, you name it. It helps with your body movement and just feeling overall good while managing stress. So this is where I'm going to dive into a little Q&A. I'll answer the first question. If anybody else has any come up, just type them in. So can you email a food list by category and timing that we can use to plan the way we should eat? Yes, I will. I can send you some things, Linda. This is like getting a lot into coaching. And this is, I'm actually glad you brought this up, because everybody's going to say, send me a food list, send me a meal plan. And that's actually not the route that I take with people. And Linda, I've worked with you, with, I've coached you on nutrition, and I'm sure you can attest to it. It needs to be more generalized. If you get put into a box with nutrition, it becomes very, very challenging. And then you got to go out to dinner to eat. Then you got to go do other things. And guess what? Nobody wants to have a little tiny salad and a power meeting at a power lunch, right? You're going to eat a normal meal. Guys, you need to understand, nutrition is not about being perfect. It's about doing the least bad in every situation given. If you treat it that way, you can be great. You can have the physique that you want. You can have the energy that you want. You can have the belly that you want. You can have the abs that you want, butt that you want, whatever it is that you want. But if you try to treat nutrition like it needs to be this perfect thing, you will inevitably fail. So that's really all I got for you guys today. If anybody has no other questions, looks like that was the only question that we had. Now, the thing that I'll say, Linda, is that foods, I will send you the healthiest foods that you can choose. Basically, if a person is going to go and reverse their diet to a point where they really want to help their digestion, which I really didn't touch on, which stress and digestion are interconnected. I will cover that in the paid webinar. But like FODMAPs, there's foods that are perfectly healthy, but they may hurt digestion. Onions, garlic, eggplant may not be ideal for digestion, but you would consider them to be healthy foods. The other component to think about, for me as an example, for green beans, cantaloupe, watermelon, pistachios, peanuts, yeast, and mushrooms cause me to create inflammation. They're my sensitivities. None of those you would take off in a healthy diet. You would eat them because they're healthy. Come on, green beans. Who's going to avoid green beans? That's healthy. But they cause me inflammation. They cause me stress. And they cause me not to lose weight. So that's why I don't give a general response like that and give a blanket answer. So what I will do is I will include a list of the healthiest options you can get, but still understand even those options can be not ideal for you, because everything needs to be kind of custom tailored. All right, looks like we've got another question. Does this affect cholesterol? Good question with cholesterol, because this is one that I get, especially from people that learn nutrition earlier, maybe in the 80s, 90s, 70s, whatever it may be. Kevin, you're probably in the 70s, 80s. I don't know. I'm just kidding, man. But what this does, cholesterol, there was a study done, I think it was done in the 50s or 55, somewhere around there. And what they did is they took a bunch of overweight people and they said, I wonder if we basically have these people stop eating so much cholesterol, which is fat ultimately, will these people lose cholesterol numbers? Will their numbers come down? And they did. So they made not a direct correlation. They made more of a, I forget the scientific word for it, but more of an assumption, right? It's not a direct proof. It's just there's some similarity there. What actually happened? You took a bunch of overweight people that didn't control their diets. You now made them pay attention to what they eat. They lost weight in the process. That weight made them lose fat. Losing fat made them have less free-floating lipids in their bloodstream, which made their cholesterol to go down. It's actually carbohydrates that cause us to have bad cholesterol. But sugar companies, there was actually an article released, paid off this study to say it was cholesterol. So New York Times refuted this about 5-10 years ago, said butter is healthy and stuff like that. So eating cholesterol is actually really good for you. It's not going to be horrible. It's not going to be bad for you. You shouldn't do high carb intake with cholesterol, but if you're on a higher fat diet with moderate carbohydrates and you're eating eggs, you're eating bacon, don't worry about cholesterol. It's not going to do anything to it. There's also different particle sizes with cholesterol. A lot of times, if we're eating healthy and we're not under massive stress, we get particle A. You can get a nuclear imaging panel done of your cholesterol. If your doctor says you have high cholesterol, I would get this done, because then you can actually argue with your doctor. And I've done this and I won. So big ones, they can't get inside the walls of your blood vessels and stuff like that. So that can't become oxidize and cause plaque. But the little ones can. So particle B is bad, particle A, awesome. That's how I remember it. So don't always think that cholesterol is going to come from eating bacon and stuff like that. So stress will cause you to have worse cholesterol. There's not a direct correlation, but there is things that happen through the process that will cause that to happen. One of those is carb cravings. So I don't know if I answered that directly or not, but just don't be so afraid, because I know I mentioned a few high fat things, to eat cholesterol. What I've read is that stress will actually increase cholesterol. Yes, absolutely. It absolutely will do that, but through the pathway of sugar. That's ultimately how it's going to happen. It's not necessarily because you ate, you had a stressful moment, cholesterol is going to jump up. It's more direct. It's more through the blood sugar pathway that happens. So if we don't have any other questions, guys, I'm going to have Linda here. I'm going to turn her back on and have her close us out. Linda, if you unmute yourself, take it over.
Yes, and so we wanted to thank everyone for tuning in today's webinar. And so I mentioned earlier in the beginning of our session that the paid webinar will be next Wednesday, February 20th, from 12 to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we want you to register, and the cost that we're going to pass on to you is $39.95 for the full hour. We will go into depth in all of the subjects that have been covered for the first three. And so we encourage you to sign up early. And that's all I have for today.
Guys, so just real quick, understand how I do this. Everything with Coaching Hub and everything I do is tell, show, do as a coach. So a lot of the things that we did is a lot of tell. Last 3 weeks have been a lot of tell. I did a little bit of show and not really a whole lot of do. The next webinar will be a lot more show and do. So actually you applying these things, telling you exactly what to do, how to correct these problems. We told you what the potential of having these problems can do, how your life is impacted positively, negatively, whatever it may be. But now we're really going to focus on corrective actions. Some of the stuff I gave you, a lot more. Now, the webinar will be not next week, Linda. Sorry, I didn't talk to you. I'm going to push it out for 2 weeks just to give time to get people to register and sign up. We will advertise for this one and stuff like that, because I haven't been advertising for this one. But anyway, if anybody has no more questions, that's all I got. Just wanted to clarify 2 weeks, not 1 week for the paid one. And tell, show, do is really the principle. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Everybody have an awesome day. And I'll talk to you guys in 2 weeks, I hope.